if a criminal sees a policeman, he's terrified. So for the criminal, the police is a terrorist. In this context, every Muslim should be a terrorist. Whenever a criminal sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. Whenever any rapist sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. Whenever any robber sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. Whenever any anti-social element sees a Muslim, he should be terrified. I'm aware that the word terrorist is more commonly used for a person who terrorizes an innocent human being. In this context, no Muslim should ever terrorize any innocent human being. And for this definition, just about 2 months back, the UK government has banned it. Because I said that every Muslim should terrorize the anti-social element. And we should not terrorize any innocent human being. We find today that many times 2 different labels are used for the same person, for the same activity. For example, when India, about 60-70 years back, when they were ruled by the British government, there were many Indians who were fighting for the freedom. These Indians, by the common Indians, they were called as freedom fighters, as patriots. The same people, same activity, by the Britishers, they were labeled as terrorists. Same people, same activity, 2 different views, 2 different labels. If you agree with the view of the British government that they had a right to rule over India, then you have to call these people as terrorists. But if you agree with the view of the common Indians that the Britishers came to India to do business, they have no right to rule over us, then you would call these people as freedom fighters, as patriots. Same people, same activity, but 2 different labels. You can give several such examples in world history. We know in 1875, the American Revolution took place. At that time, when the British were ruling USA. According to the British at that time, George Washington was terrorist number 1. Later on, when USA gets its freedom, George Washington becomes the president of USA. Imagine, terrorist number 1 of the world at that time becomes the president of USA. So what do we come to know? That whoever is in power, whatever label they give, it gets stuck onto it, irrespective of whether side or wrong. So this is the power of the media. Therefore I said, media is the most important weapon today. Right or wrong is secondary. It may be right, may be wrong. We have the example of South Africa. Previously, before South Africa got its freedom, where it was ruled by the white apartheid government, the white apartheid government had imprisoned Nelson Mandela, called him the biggest terrorist, and imprisoned him in Robben Islands for more than 25 years. When South Africa gets its freedom, Nelson Mandela is released, and he becomes the president of South Africa. And later on, he gets the Nobel Prize for Peace. Imagine, terrorist, biggest terrorist of the world at that time, gets the Nobel Prize for Peace. Not that he was good and then he became peaceful. For the same activity for which he was imprisoned for 25 years and called a terrorist, for the same activity, a few years later, he gets the Nobel Prize for Peace. So from this we learn that whoever is in power, whatever label that person in power gives, it gets stuck onto the individual. This is the power of media. And unfortunately, we Muslims, as far as media is concerned, we are very backward. I will come to it later on. The second strategy used by the media is to malign Islam, that when they find any good Muslims who have done good work for humanity, for social cause, they will not highlight his identity as Muslim. And we have example in history. When I was in school, I had learned in science The Aristotle of the East was Avicenna. Avicenna sounds like a European name. Avicenna. It is Ali ibn Sina. We had learned the father of chemistry was Geber. Geber sounds like a Western name. It is Jabir ibn Hayyan. Jabir ibn Hayyan is the father of chemistry. In school we learned Geber. So this is how the media, how does the media work? No, if you go Muslim, you have the word Geber. Yeah, Geber. Some non-Muslim, some Westerner. It is Jabir ibn Hayyan. And on the other hand, strategy number 8. If there is a Muslim who speaks against Islam, against the Quran, or against the Prophet, they highlight them out of proportion. Example, Salman Rushdie. Example, Taslima Nasrin. So you know it, mashallah, well versed with the media. You all hear the media, but you don't know you are getting programmed by the media. So these are various strategies used by the media to fulfill the agenda of war on the religion of peace. If you analyze the 4 strategies that are used, the 4 different methods, categories of media, there's an article that came on the 16th of April, 1979, in the Newsweek magazine. It said that in a span of 150 years, from 1800 to 1950, more than 60,000 books have been written against Islam. If you do a calculation, more than 1 book was written against Islam in a span of 150 years. More than 1 book every day. And after 9/11, this has reached epidemic levels. Every day, several books are written against Islam. And one of the common message spread by these books, especially after 9/11, is that Islam was fed by the sword. Peace, if you translate Islam, peace was fed by the sword. It sounds kind of difficult like this. And if you know history, you learn from history that the Arabs, the Muslims, they ruled the Arab land for over 1400 years. For a few years the Britishers came, for a few years the French came, but as a whole, the Muslim Arabs, they were the lord of the Arab lands. Yet today, there are 14 million Arabs or Coptic Christians. These 14 million Coptic Christians, they are giving Shahada, they are bearing witness that Islam wasn't spread with the sword. We Muslim ruled Spain for over 800 years, we didn't do the job. When the Crusaders came, there was not a single Muslim who could openly give the Azan. We Muslims didn't do the job. We didn't deserve the best of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the reason we suffer. In India, the Muslims, we ruled for over 1,000 years. Today, more than 80% of the Indians, they are non-Muslims, they are Hindus. These 80% non-Muslim Indians, if we wanted at that time, if we wanted, we could have converted every non-Muslim at the part of the sword. We had the power, we didn't do it. Today, these more than 80% non-Muslim Indians, they are giving Shahada, they are bearing witness that Islam was spread by the sword. This is a living example. If the Mughals, if the Muslims wanted, they could have converted each and every non-Muslim Indian as a part of the sword. They didn't do it because it's not allowed in Islam. Today, the country which has the maximum number of Muslims is Indonesia. Which Muslim army went to Indonesia? Which Muslim army went to Malaysia, which has more than 50% Muslims? Which Muslim army went to the east coast of Africa? Which sword? Thomas Carlyle says, it is the sword of the intellect. You have to first get the sword. As Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse 125. Invite all the way of thy Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching, and argue with them, and reason with them in the ways that are best for the It is talking about the sword of the intellect.